Değerli izleyicilerimiz, Meyve teşekkür ettikten sonra şimdi yayına da Amerika'dan bir ziyaretçimiz var ama bağlantıyı İtalya'dan yapacağız. Buman Founder'ı ve CEO'su sevgili Dan Bosco bizimle bir sonraki dijital devrimin neden dijital konular üzerinden olacağını anlatacak bize. Dan Bosco, welcome to Istanbul.
Thank you so much.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
the stage
I can
is
hear you.
yours.
Can you hear me okay?
Your connection
Excellent.
so weak, but yes, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Okay. So I hope you can see my screen here. So today I'd like to talk to you about human cloning and how digital human clones really be the next revolution here. So, you know, here at Be Human, we've focused originally on making video and audio clones of people. And we've seen really that this can be much more than just that. Actually, it can change the way that we work, can change the way that we communicate. And I think that in the back of everyone's head during this AI revolution, we all know where this is going, right? We all know that human cloning will be a thing. We just don't know exactly how, right? And so with my team here at Be Human, we've been in the weeds of this. We've been really working a lot on this. And I'd like to pull those curtains away and show you exactly how human cloning will be a thing, not only of the far future, but of the near future, and how it indeed will be the next revolution. So if you think about, you know, biology, really, it's the limiting factor here, right? If you tell yourself, I don't have enough time to do all the things I want to do, there's also limits of human memory, right? Being able to know more than a certain number of people and have relationships with them at scale is another limiting human factor. There's also the factor of concurrency, meaning that you can't multitask, or at least some of us can't. You can't do more than one thing at once, right? Whereas a computer can do thousands and millions of things at once. And also ability, right? My Turkish is laughable, right? However, there's a world in which my clone speaks perfect Turkish and can communicate that for me. So all of these limiting factors are baked into what make us human, for better or for worse. And these are the things that we focused here at Be Human on mitigating with our digital clones. So I'd like to start this off. Let's play a game first. So I'm going to show you an image, and I want you to think about and come up with an answer for how you could have made all these people's lives easier. And in our modern world, we can look back and know this easily. So let's start with our first example for this game. All right, so here we have a group of perhaps slaves pulling a pharaoh along. They're holding the pharaoh on their back. It's heavy. What could you do to make their lives easier? Well, you might think, okay, well, they should use a wheel. Make things a lot easier. Okay, let's play another game. So back before there were modern world and communication and cell towers and things like that, if you wanted to send a letter from, let's say, New York to California, you had to hand that letter to someone locally who would then ride for maybe 50 kilometers, give it to somebody else, and it would be a chain like that. Basically, it could take weeks to send a single letter. So how would you have done this today, looking back, if you could time travel and tell them what to do? Well, you would say, build cell towers, give them an iPhone. So the cowboy in California can call the businessman in New York, no problem. Now let's come to a problem today. You're overwhelmed at work. You've got a million Zoom meetings. You got a million emails to get to, and you just don't have time. Completely overwhelmed. Well, this is the question. What would you do to make this person's life easier? The answer now is give them a clone. Have someone else do all that for them. So all they need to do is, instead of being stuck at the office, overwhelmed, and maybe they go back and instead give them guidance and let them do the work. You can enjoy whatever else you expect. And all that was just that the revolution we're going right now is not very new. All things that biology limits us, and how we can do more. Wheel to printers to towers and stuff. Great, but then is what we has been done, what will be done, and there's nothing in the sun. So this is not very new. This is something done before. And, we have to keep that in mind going forward. Fear about this. But actually, it's just going to make you enjoy the things that you want to do. And I just got to All right, I just changed internet connections. I apologize for that. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, okay, now it's okay. You can keep going on.
Okay, all right, great. So I don't know where I got cut off. So, what I want to illustrate here is that, we've done this all before, right? We've gone from, adding wheels to the backs of slaves pulling the pharaoh. We've added cell towers so that you can make a call across the world instantly. And now going forward, we find ourselves with a new problem, which is in the information age. How can you communicate at scale? How can you do tasks at scale? And that leads us to our new solution, which is human cloning. So I want to talk about what makes a human digital, right? What makes a human clone someone that can be indistinguishable from a real person operating online? And this comes down to voice. So how can we recreate that person's voice to make it sound like them, to make it feel like them? How can we recreate their face so that it looks like them when they're speaking? And finally, how can we recreate their knowledge base? So for example, their memory, what they know, their techniques in terms of how they talk, generalization, which is around how can they do tasks that take, for example, a lot of planning and research and thinking over time. And finally, digital footprint, which is how can they have, for example, social media profiles? How can they really look like a real human on the internet? So I want to start with face and voice. And this is where our company got its start. For the past few years, we've been focusing on research in voice cloning and face cloning. And so we have our model to a point now where with just a few minutes of speech, you can create a clone of yourself. And so I'd like to show you a quick demo here. So let me, okay, great. I'll share my screen again. All right. Excellent. So this was created from just about 3 minutes of my speech. And you can see we've been able to take that and actually put it into a digital clone you can now interact with.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Dom, founder here at Be Human. And in this conversation, you can ask me anything about, well, Be Human. So maybe questions about how it works, pricing, how we built it. So go ahead and ask some questions now.
Hey, Dom. Nice to meet you. Can you tell me about Be Human?
Be Human is an innovative platform that uses AI technology to generate and distribute personalized videos at scale.
Okay, cool. And I've heard about Persona. What is Persona?
So Persona is a tool that allows you to digitally clone yourself and then put that clone into video chats with your audience. The clone can learn what you know, look like you, and sound like you. So it's a digital representation of you.
Okay, so you can see that the speech, the voice, the gestures, as well as the knowledge base, all created, all generated by our AI technology. But like I said, this is just a couple layers of the entire pie that makes up human cloning. So that's face and voice. Now let's get into the next things here, which comes around the knowledge base. Let me just come back to my presentation. Okay. So in regards to knowledge base, this is really around what does your clone know, right? And today we spend about half of our waking time online. Okay, so about half of our conversations are digital, whether that's over texting, phone calls, Zoom, email, you name it. So actually we convey a lot of our brain knowledge through our keyboard and through our microphones. And so we've created AI that can listen to that and in real time learn more about you, learn what you know. That information is then stored in special databases. So for example, if I just had a phone call yesterday and I mentioned my upcoming travel plans to somebody, the AI would have been listening, would have been taking notes on that. And then if somebody asks my clone tomorrow, hey, will you be in New York next week, for example? Will you be in Istanbul next month? Then my clone would be able to respond to that and to basically have real information from my own phone call to answer that. This information is stored in special databases, which do something called vectorization, so that the data can be accessed and referenced in real time and used in the real world. And the next thing is generalization. So how can you have your clone complete complex tasks? So if you've played around with different LLMs, whether that's Llama or ChatGPT, you'll know that for a single task, it can do really, really well, sometimes even better than a human. But when there's a task that involves long-term planning, memory, judgment, quality control, coordination, right? This is where it starts to get lost, and it's better to have a human do it. And there's a lot of research being done in this space right now around what's called autonomous agents. And how this works is, instead of having, let's say let's call it an agent that is answering your question, trying to do your task, you can spawn up 5 or 10 or 50 who can kind of work as a team and they reference each other. So for example, if I'm planning to do a social media post, right? I can have I have an agent who is a designer. I can have an agent who perhaps does quality control, who checks the designs from the designer. I can have an agent who is a copywriter who writes really great content. I can have an agent who is a researcher who comes up with ideas. I can have an agent who focuses on SEO. And by basically doing a specialization of labor, which is what humans have done actually, we're able to make a much more effective process. And I'd like to show you a demo of this as well. We've actually taken this and applied it to not only just things like information processing, but giving your clone the ability to take over your computer and actually do things on your behalf. So I will once again change my screen and show you something really cool. This is actually just groundbreaking, latest stuff. Okay, so I'll play this back for you.
Okay, Persona. I need an update on the leader project. And I think the best way to do that is to have a coffee with Vish and catch up about it. So find a time when I'm available tomorrow morning and then email Vish inviting him for coffee at that time.
Okay, so that's my command. And now the bot has started. In real time, it's thinking, oh, people are saying they can't see my screen. Let me make sure that, can you all see my screen? Sorry for the technical difficulties here. All right, let me know. Yeah, let me try this. All right.
You can share your screen, no problem.
You can see it now, right? Okay. All right, excellent. So I'll play this back. So once again, so this is our digital clone that is now taking a command and then taking over my computer to actually do things on my behalf. And I'll explain how this works as I play it through.
Okay, Persona. I need an update on the leader project. And I think the best way to do that is to have a coffee with Vish and catch up about it. So find a time when I'm available tomorrow morning and then email Vish inviting him for coffee at that time.
Okay, so now it's thinking, where do I send an email? So Gmail, but I asked it to check my availability. So actually first it has to check my calendar. And how it's deciding where to click is by actually looking at the screen, using some multimodal LLMs to decide where is the best place to click. And then from that, what is the next best step? So I checked my calendar and now it's going to be writing an email. Found Vish's email, as you can see. And it found that I was available at 11 a.m.
Let's take a look at the message. Okay, so it looked at my calendar, it found availability, and it contacted Vish. Excellent.
Okay, so you can see it's a short little demo, but you can imagine, right, this being done at scale when you have 10 clones of you, each with their own browser, doing different things. We're able to go far beyond chatbots, far beyond simple informational processing, and actually give clones tools and arms that can do things in the digital world just like humans can. Okay, great. So excellent. So that is generalization. And then the last step of this is a human footprint, a digital footprint rather. So actually what you're seeing right here on the right side is an example of one of our LinkedIn bots, which is not actually a real person, right? It's actually one of our clones that is actually running its own LinkedIn profile to find leads for the owner of this particular clone in its market. And there's no human interaction here from our side, but this clone is actually talking to a lot of humans at scale and going back and forth with them. And the humans in the loop are none the wiser in a way. And so, going forward, you'll see things like different AI having their own Instagram accounts, having their own blogs. You're already seeing something like that from Meta on Instagram, where you have some celebrities, they have their AI Instagram account. But that's just the first step, right? This is going to go a lot further, to the point where you'll see that, online you have to think about, is this a human or is this a clone, right? There'll be two different entities that you can interact with across the web at any point. And so our mission as a company is to clone 1 billion people by 2030. And again, the whole point of this comes down to one thing, is that we're humans, we're not robots, right? So we shouldn't work like robots. And I think that a lot of people today spend a lot of time doing repetitive tasks that can easily be automated through things like human cloning. So our whole mission is really to make humanity more human, right? Hence the name Be Human. So at this point, I know I've gone through a lot. So I'd like to open the floor up to see if there are any questions from anyone. I'm sure there are many questions, and we can get into more of the topic specifically.
There's only one question for you from Gamze Seçkin. I will show you. Yes, she says, how long it takes to train for exact personality?
So as we mentioned, there's the different layers, right? There's the face and voice layer. There's the knowledge-based layer. Those are the main things that we have to train for. So in that case, the voice layer takes only about 45 seconds to a minute of voice data. For the face, we need about 3 to 5 minutes is best. So for face and voice, a couple of minutes is the short answer. And then for the knowledge base, for example, if you're Bill Gates, let's say, right? There's obviously a lot of information about you online. So the persona is able to research you and try to learn as much on its own as it can. For someone who doesn't have a big footprint online already, though, how much it knows, its knowledge base, depends on what you feed it. So for example, if you connect it to your Gmail account and it's able to monitor your emails and read your emails as you write them and as you send them, then it's going to learn that knowledge in real time. If you have it join every meeting with you, then same thing. It'll learn that in real time. So the knowledge base, the more you put in, the more it will know. So that's more of a long-term project, kind of like almost like raising a pet in a way, right? You're teaching it more things as it goes. And as the weeks and months go by, this now becomes more and more useful and more knowledgeable.
There's one more question from Mr. Kıvanç Değirmenci. He asks, in the demo, the AI model provided responses that appeared as directly access the calendar at Gmail account. Is it completed in the background or just like in the demo?
Yeah, great question, Kıvanç. So when we built that prototype that you saw there, there's sort of two paths you can take, right? The first path is to, especially in a browser, look at the page source and interact with the website through a page source, which is one approach, is something that people have tried before. The problem with that is it's very limited. If I tell the clone to open Spotify, it won't know what to do, right? It'll try to go to the Spotify app, but let's say I ask it to do something else outside of a browser, right? Things can go wrong. So we take a more visual approach. So actually, what you saw is actually completed on the screen itself through automation, like you would, for example, have a bot that would use a screen to scrape something, for example, right? We're not actually controlling the websites through code, but through actual clicks like a human would, which allows us to be way more flexible when it comes to what you can do with your clone and make sure it's not limited.
There's one more question from Ahmet Yaşar, Mr. Ahmet Yaşar, and is there multi-language support, including lip sync on?
Yeah. So we actually support over 25 languages right now. That's been important to us early on. And of course, the lip sync. So our lip sync model is driven by audio. So actually, the languages are only limited by our voice cloning models. So, if you speak Swahili, right, or if you laugh, you don't even speak a word, but you laugh or you yell, right? Our lip sync model will reflect that because it's audio driven.
Okay, done. The question is over. Thank you very much for the great sharing.
Great. Thank you very much.